So often as creatives, we want something so bad that we're just trying to sprint just to make every little piece happen. Harried and worried and just never believing if we even stop for a second to catch our breath that it just will never happen. But when your digital extremes and your mission and your story starts in 1993 and you don't even get to making Warframe till 20 years later, if you only sprint, you very easily forget that this is a marathon and you're out of the game before you even get started. So, in that 20-year span, could Digital Extremes even made it to launch day had they not treated this as something that's meant to be long curated and invested in and taken the time to build that endurance up?
Right. So these adventures truly are a marathon. There's a gentleman that I know who ran a lot of long distance races, and one of the things he talked about when training for these types of races is that the work you put in today isn't going to manifest itself really until 2-3 weeks down the line. So you have to build up to that point where you can run those types of distances. And the same thing for Warframe. Here is a game in their minds is truly an MMO. But where did Warframe start out at? It started out as really a small game that had a little bit of multiplayer capabilities, but really basic in its beginnings. But even before that, well, as we've talked about in previous videos, is that really Digital Extremes started out with James Schmalz making pinball games, which then led them eventually to make Unreal Tournament, led them to make several different IP games, and then eventually a Warframe. All of those previous instances are them training themselves. They're conditioning themselves to be able to run this long race, which is now for them Warframe.
Well, and sustainability and that endurance both is something we often think of as something going forward, but in the way we're referring to it, it's also something that's built retroactively. There is a level of trust that we have when we train for marathons in our bodies not to fail us when we go that. And I've never run a marathon, by the way, but when doing any kind of long run or training, it's the idea that you can trust that your body is not going to give out and fall apart. That's something that is built incrementally. You don't get up off the couch and go, I'm going to go run 5 miles. I'm going to run 26 miles or any number of anything in between. So with this was something that was built in the years leading up to. It was that sustainability and endurance came with an actual seed of trust. Now, from that point on, it's how can you keep moving forward in ways that make sense, that you just don't aim to be able to run the distance and have the endurance is just one component of that. To have a direction that is driven by purpose, so you don't just wander aimlessly without any proper direction is key to actually not only having that endurance, but applying it in a way that takes you in a direction you want to go.
And with that comes a growth mindset. There's some studies out that talk about or contrast growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Fixed mindset being, I have a certain amount of skill and that's all the skill I'm ever going to have. I cannot grow beyond that point. Whereas growth mindset is recognizing this is where I'm at now, but I know that if I put in the time, the effort, I can grow further. And Warframe time and time again has demonstrated this growth mindset. And that's part of sustainability, is recognizing we're here right now. This is the very best we can offer right now. But what with time, with practice, with effort, can we offer 2 months from now, 2 years from now, and so on? And that's what keeps on pushing them forward, is they keep on looking beyond the now and seeing where they can grow, where they can improve.
Well, and taking that marathon mindset and doing this with actual incremental growth is key to success. If we actually flip the physical narrative from a creative standpoint, thinking of weight loss, there are different ways to lose weight. The way to do this is to do it in small pieces, to do it in a way that's natural and healthy. Because being able to lose 60 pounds in a month versus 60 pounds in a year, one might seem at first like, I can do this in a month, I can get and reach my goals. But immediately what ends up happening is usually rubber band back the other way, and actually even worse than where you started, because it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't the right way to grow, or in this case, lose, but to have that actual growth in your goal. But doing it over time, slow and steady wins the race, knowing that this isn't something that once you reach that goal, it doesn't end. If you lose the weight, run the race, you have other races, you have weight to maintain. There's no end to this, and that's both a gift and a curse. It's a curse in knowing that there's no way of actually finishing, but the gift is knowing that if you can acknowledge that, you can just always set up expectations that you are always having to work and move forward. Otherwise, it ends.
Right, and how important that is for Warframe, and what clearly they've recognized is, if they were trying to build Warframe of what it is today when they first released it back in 2013, and let's say even if they got to that point, how much money, how much burnout would there have to be put in order to get to that point? It's just simply not sustainable.
Mm.
You burn out your team, you burn bridges by doing that. You put a great deal of financial risk for your investors. Because what happens if they were able to do that and yet it didn't receive the success because it wasn't built through the interaction with the community that's made it so strong? So part of that is recognizing that this truly is a long-term race you've got to run.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you bring up the community and those who are playing. I think that's the other side, is even if you can, as a content creator, whether you're digital extremes making Warframe or an individual sitting in front of a camera like we are right now, things to recognize is that just because you can do something, there's such a thing as too much too fast. That even if Warframe could deliver the game experience it has today, 6 years ago, would it have been, how much would have been diluted by not being done incrementally? People built from the small game into this larger thing piece by piece. It was easier for them also to enjoy and to have respect, to also give proper feedback and how to make the game better, as opposed to giving caution to the wind, having everything made, cutting corners to get it made, but also finding that because it all came so fast, and we see this with some other games where there's a lot of features and a lot of amazing things that maybe just didn't rank as high, and so none of them got enjoyed because they're just putting out a glut of content that a normal person could properly enjoy. If you're a content creator, how much is too much content? Versus, I mean, and I'm loath to say that there's such a thing as too much, but how it's delivered and parsed out, because that's not sustainable for your people to make, but it's also not sustainable for your audience to enjoy. 3 hours of YouTube content a day for most people is too much, but that same piece of content parted out so many different ways is more likely to be enjoyed, and also because it's taken that burden of quality to be chosen, is more likely to fall on more receptive ears.
So that's what's so important about Warframe being a game as a service, is it's not about launching a single game. It really is about creating content for the long period. And so, right, as content creators, it's not about the one video that gets 10 million views. It's about the series of videos that give a couple thousand, 100,000 here or there, that build your audience, that gives you time to engage with your audience, understand them, how to interact with them, that you can then build, learn, pivot, and continue to grow for the long term.
Well, and you mentioned games as a service, which I think is an interesting thing when we talk about sustainability, because when you think of something as only a product is made, shipped, and finished. Generally, a product is not improved upon, but a service is a relationship between people. Even if it's product related, it is a constantly evolving concept. And with that goal in mind, if you can maintain as a content creator, making games, comics, anything under the sun, and you realize it's a persistent conversation between you and your audience, you and your team building it, then you can continue to keep it fresh, not allow it to stagnate.
And that's part of the beauty of thinking of it as a service, is that it goes back to, again, that you're connecting with people. It's about empathizing with them. Whatever the problems that they're looking to be solved. Is it just, are they looking to get entertained? They're looking for engagement. It's about understanding their needs and then being able to deliver that service. And the thing is, audiences change, their needs change. And so that gives you a new opportunity to offer new service, better services that can help answer those needs that they have.
Well, and we look at a game now that's been out for 6 years. And by having that service, you get to also acknowledge that the player that started with you 6 years ago is not necessarily the same player 6 years later, that you can adapt the model and the way you deliver content towards them because they've grown with you. You've grown together, but you also need to grow to a particular direction. Because if this game was the same game as in 2013, it wouldn't be on the list that it is. It wouldn't be the conversation piece that it is right now as a model for creativity and that journey. So that player isn't the same player. Well, that should inspire that momentum. They're helping you. They've become stewards of the value of this product by your dialogue with them, your ability to work with your team to create content worthy of them, but by them actually wanting it to continue to succeed by investing those hours day after day, month after month, so on and so forth. So what we find is that there's an immense amount of momentum being maintained, that it doesn't just fall on any one person as a creator or an audience, but as a collective effort.
And along those lines of momentum, and how it correlates with sustainability is momentum becomes really the fuel to overcome the hardships. In any creative journey, there are both uphill battles and there are the coasting going downhill. And there's going to be a cycle of that in every project continually. And that's what's so important about momentum is when you're going down, it's important not simply to just coast down, but to run as fast as you can going on those easy parts, to go as fast as you can. Because when those challenges come, when you've got to go back up that hill, you'll be able to much easier break through those walls. And part of momentum also is just, especially if you're just starting out as a content creator, it goes to just to the point of showing up each day and putting in the work, even if it's a little bit. Seinfeld has a great philosophy in how he does his work and how he writes jokes. Is he simply shows up each day, writes for 30 minutes, and when he does it, he puts an X on his calendar. And his one job is simply not to break that chain. So he sees his calendar and he sees his chain for months upon months. His one goal is to not break that chain. And as a content creator, that's really our goal when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to endurance, to maintain that momentum, is to show up every single day.
No, I mean, participation is key. And you mentioned these downhill moments. Anyone who's ever been a competitive cyclist or aware of how things work, you'll find out that the fastest those pedals ever move is downhill. They don't just ride that downhill. So I'm of the mind that when you're going uphill or downhill, you're really putting the same effort. It may seem like the pedals are moving faster in the easy times and slower on the uphill, but the difference is they're always requiring the same effort. If you come in, maintain the integrity and accountability that comes with showing up every day to meet that minimum barrier for success, that when it's hard, it won't feel as hard. And when it's easy, you can actually set up the next time it's hard. When Seinfeld talks about doing those things, it's that realization of how much we set ourselves up to not disappoint those, whether it be us or those who are accountable with us. Is seeing that X, you don't want to break that chain. You want to keep moving forward. You want to deliver that content regularly. You instead of taking the day off or cutting corners, feeling that and mortgaging against that trust that has been built. Instead, you use that as fuel to actually push through and deliver more equal to or more than was expected of you.
Yep. And then I think that's really our conversation coming full circle is belief and endurance. They're just a cycle that help fuel each other. The belief in going forward and the endurance to show up each day, that just helps continue to create that trust in yourself, trust with your audience to keep building, keep moving forward. It all becomes really the system of cogs that all work together to move and to help continue to build you forward.
Well, and it ties back to the marathon example you gave in the beginning. It's knowing that the efforts today pay dividends tomorrow and even further on in the future. So it's being accountable today is what keeps you sustainable and to maintain that endurance going forward.